All right, everyone, and welcome back to the On Deck podcast by Prospects Live. And Rhys, we are live again to talk some playoff baseball on a Sunday in between late slate football and Monday night football, as well as the Seattle Mariners and Detroit Tigers Game 2 matchup tonight. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. The Tigers managed to pull off an extra innings win against your Seattle Mariners. It's been fantastic. The Melt Mafia was living and breathing through that game. And the Melt Mafia is just me and Will Thompson, by the way, in a group chat with Nate. So, yeah, unfortunately, Will can't join us for reasons. But, yeah, it's been fun. I'm doing fantastic. I walked 5 miles this morning, and the Lions are beating up on the Bengals right now. So life can't be much better than this.
Are you calling walking 5 miles a positive in your life, or is that like a good thing in your day-to-day?
Well, can I be honest? We kind of got lost once, twice, or maybe 3 times, and it was entirely my fault. I was supposed to be paying attention to the way that we were going. So yeah, Danielle's here, so I have to tell the truth. So yeah, it was good though. Good to get out. Stretch your
Bad
legs out.
maps guy, Rhys. Good baseball team, Rhys. So let's start off
Yeah.
with talking about Game 3 and the wild card round a little bit. Just finishing up where we picked off last week. All right, so the Tigers obviously beat the Guardians. Rhys, what were your thoughts in that Game 3, Tigers versus Guardians?
All of a sudden, you know what happens when you get runners in scoring position and you actually can start stringing together hits? They can start scoring runs. In game 2, I believe they stranded a million base runners. I don't know if that's the right number or not, but that's what it felt like in my heart. But yeah, all of a sudden, Kerry Carpenter came through, Kerry Bonds, Dylan Dingler, the Ohio kid. They could not stop talking about how Dylan Dingler is an Ohio kid and he went to Ohio State and he finally came through, unlike Ohio State, and did something for the Tigers. And it was a good game, honestly. They didn't decide to get cute and pull Riley Green for Jahmai Jones, which is still, I think, directionally the right decision. And Cleveland just didn't have it. Slade Ciccone was actually pretty good. He allowed 1 run in his basically open sort of situation, 2 2.3 innings. But Flaherty came through, did what you expected a veteran of the playoffs who's won a World Series to do. 4 2/3 innings, 4 strikeouts, 2 walks, 1 earned run, and they turned it over to the bullpen. And the bullpen was masterful. Kyle Finnegan was great. Holton has been the more underrated star of this entire postseason run. Every time Tyler Holton comes in, it feels like the game's sort of locked down from there. And yeah, Will Vest put all the batters in a vest and just lock that game down. He's the best closer in baseball. I'm just joking, he's not, but he's the best closer in the American League Central.
Yeah, and that's fair. And we talked about this Guardians bullpen having to go pretty heavy in games 1 and 2 of that series, and we saw them slow down a little bit. I believe our boy Hunter Gaddis struggled for the first time that I've ever seen him struggle. You and me have talked about him as this elite setup man all year, and he looked, a little more fragile in Game 3, pitching 3 days in a row in the playoffs, which is something that a lot of these guys haven't had to do. So I would put that as a small win for the On Deck boys as far as the Tigers-Guardians series, predicting that maybe the Guardians bullpen wouldn't be as great as they've been all season, Rhys.
Yeah, I think that the decision to rely on the trio of Hunter Gaddis, and Kate Smith, basically, and then just mixing and matching who the third reliever is at any given point. I think that you see a reliever 3 times in 3 days, and that's what can happen. Even with absolutely disgusting stuff like Hunter Gaddis does and Kate Smith has, the Tigers managed to get to them, and I think that's how they ended up winning the series. It was a very close-ish game going for a little bit. Got a little tense towards the end because Brian Rocchio cannot stop being annoying. So I mean, I don't think this is too much that Guardians fans can be too upset with. They have a fantastic manager. They have a fantastic bullpen. Maybe they trade Stephen Kwan this offseason and get some close to the majors pieces because it almost feels like Stephen Kwan's getting a little expensive for them. So I think it's time for maybe, a little bit of a refresh. But Chase DeLauder actually looked really, really good for someone who hasn't played. He was a little bit better in center field than I was going to give him, going into it. He was perfectly fine. 50 defender out there in center field. I don't think he's ever going to be like a Gold Glover, but I think that there's a lot to look forward to for Cleveland, even if they did not end up beating the Tigers, despite them destroying the Tigers for the last 6 weeks of the season.
Yeah, Cleveland's third best bullpen arm was Eric Sabrowski kind of heading into this, and he was the other kind of not blow up guy, but he gave up 2 runs and walked 2 batters. No, I'm looking at the wrong guy. Eric Sabrowski, though, did give up 2 runs, along with Hunter Gaddis giving up 2, and both just getting 1 out in that game. Those are both guys who pitched 3 days in a row. So I do want to say that our madness does have some methodology to it. I've seen some posts on X lately saying that opposing hitter OPS just goes up every single game that they see a reliever in a row. It's pretty obvious stuff, right? But obviously the stats back it up as well. Do we want to have a funeral for our Padres right now?
Yeah, and the funeral is very sad for our Padres. I just think that The thing is if we didn't get one of the worst calls we've ever seen, especially in the moment that it was happening with Xander Bogaerts. I mean, you have the Savant people coming out and being like, well, our thing says this, but Savant doesn't have a box that changes. It is just a standard copy and paste box for every single batter, and Bogart's box is smaller than a little bit of your average batter. So, that strike 3 call was absolutely horrendous. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen. But it's, unfortunately, Fernando Tatis Jr. having 3 strikeouts in a do or die game isn't going to help the cause, especially with Manny Machado. Didn't really do much of anything either, a walk, and that was kind of it. Jackson Merrill was like the only interesting piece on offense that day, outside of Freddie Fermin, who's our boy. We love Freddie Fermin. We're Freddie Fermin boys over here. But, Yu Darvish going 1 inning, and then that bullpen did get kind of taxed. We're talking about they were locked down, but they were relied upon very, very heavily. And I just hat tip to the Cubs. The Cubs were able to withstand what was this Padres bullpen.
And Yu Darvish starting, a game in the playoffs, like we thought that maybe we could get some vintage Yu Darvish. He pitched an inning, he gave up 2 runs, he gave up 4 hits. It's his career he's on the tail end of his career, right? Like playoff starts are not really, it's like kind of what we're seeing with Kershaw right now. Although Kershaw would have been a better option than Darvish. It was just unfortunate that is how it had to happen for a team that did have such a good bullpen and profiled as a team that could go deep into the playoffs, Rhys. But them's the apples, right?
Them's the breaks.
Red Sox, Yankees. I mean, Cam Schlittler, Rhys. What are we thinking about that?
What an absolute performance. What do the Yankees fans always say? He earned his pinstripes, which the single funniest bit in baseball would be if the Yankees prospects came up and didn't have pinstripes on their jerseys and they had to wait for a signature performance. But what a game. 8 innings, 5 punch outs, or 5 hits, 12 punch outs. He was absolutely masterful. He was just mixing and matching. I saw a bunch of people were like, this was a really good thing that the Yankees win against the analytics. I didn't realize that the analytics say if your guy is absolutely dealing, you keep him out there, because this team had nothing going for them. He was efficient with his pitch count. This Red Sox team was just not ready for Cam Schlittler. And honestly, I don't think any of us were. Shout out to Connolly Early. He did perfectly fine for his first ever postseason start. No shots at him, but when you give up 4 runs, 3 earned, it's not going to be your day.
Yeah, it's just not quite good enough. And a lot of those runs were unlucky. Like his FIP was very low that day.
Yeah.
Kind of a shame, but I mean, the rookie pitching battle in the playoffs was fun to see. And the Red Sox had just as much of a claim to win that series as the Yankees did. They just didn't have the Cam Schlittler performance out of Connolly Early. I mean, I think that you can go to bed all right as a Red Sox fan, knowing that, Cam Schlittler had the best game of his life.
Yeah. The thing with the Red Sox is they need to get a SP3 or SP2, sorry. Do they have that internally? I think that's going to be the question this offseason. Peyton Tolley, I think is more than likely that option, but do they go out and be aggressive in the trade market? Are they the team that goes out there and gets Mackenzie Gore? I don't know if I want Mackenzie Gore being my SP2. If he's your SP3, you're rocking and rolling, you're cooking the gas. But I think that the Red Sox can kind of hang their hats. They played well. They were also missing one of their best hitters in Roman Anthony, and the bottom of the lineup just wasn't able to help them out as much as they needed. Alex Bregman was sort of fine. Trevor Story, I think it was game 2 where he was like 5 feet from a grand slam. So that just happens when you have a starting pitcher like Cam Schlittler who went 8 innings, 12 strikeouts. I mean, you can't really, the analytics say you're going to lose that game, right?
The Red Sox need Dylan Cease is where I've landed throughout this whole experiment. I think that would be the perfect SP2 for them.
I think so too. Steady, has some upside. Is a blow-up outing, but he's not your ace, right? Garrett Crochet's your ace. If Dylan Cease is your SP2, I think you're doing fantastic. Tolley 3, Early 4, Giolito 5. Man, Red Sox might be cooking with gas next year.
I look at the Red Sox as a team who can maximize punch outs, honestly, and Dylan Cease punches batters out at a better rate than anyone. Imagine what he would be like in that Red Sox Cal Bodie system. But yeah, that's about all I have for the wild card round, unless you have any wrap-up thoughts on last week's baseball, Rhys.
Last week's baseball was exciting. I mean, we got 3 game 3s. I mean, it's awesome. I'm bummed today that as we're talking, we only have 2 games of baseball, but we're going to talk about the game 1s and everything like that here in a second. It was a good playoff round. I'm very excited with it. I like this playoff system quite a bit. If these games are to start going to 3-game series,
it's the best version of this new system that we've seen yet. I think that's fair to say, with the games going to deciding game 3s, right?
Yeah. I agree.
All right. Moving forward to October 4th, yesterday, the Brewers came out hot against the Cubs. This Brewers team that we say plays this unethical brand of playoff baseball, or maybe it's the most ethical brand of baseball out there, Rhys. But they had their way with Matthew Boyd early. What are you thinking about the Cubs Brewers in that performance?
Yeah, we're talking about ethical baseball right here. I mean, 5 walks for a team that scored 9 runs. That's some pretty ethical stuff right there. Jackson Chourio came out and was fantastic. Unfortunately, had to get pulled because of hamstring, I believe, oblique, something in that somewhere in the leg area. But it was fine. They basically pulled him, because the game, they didn't really need him to push any further. Everything was sort of as you were expecting for the Brewers. They went out there and they pounced on Matthew Boyd, who has had his fair share of blowups in his career. Matthew Boyd was just unable to weather the storm that is this really, really good lineup. While no one's really has the star power, Jackson Chourio might have the most claim to be the star power of this lineup. Everybody just sort of keeps the line moving. It's just, a sum of its parts sort of offense, death by a thousand paper cuts, and the Cubs were not able to keep up in game 1.
Yeah, maybe the most surprising Nico Hoerner game of his career with both an error and a home run. I don't know if he's ever done that before in a single game of baseball he's ever played, as one of the best defenders in baseball and one of the guys who could hit for the least amount of power. So that was my little nerd nugget on that game. But I mean, that Brewers offense, man, it picked up right where it left off, looking like a clear favorite over the Cubs, but then you match them up against a team like the Phillies or the Dodgers, who we'll talk about here soon, Rhys. Does this performance give you any hope that the Brewers might be able to come out of the NL?
I think that they might be able to. When I was watching this game, I don't know if you agree with me. I was like, why is Freddie Peralta still out there pitching? You don't need, you save those bullets. Like, you might need them, later on down the road. Freddie Peralta was masterful. I mean, kind of has gone under the radar. 5 2/3 innings, 4 hits, 2 earned, three walks, 9 strikeouts. He gave up 2 home runs, but it ultimately didn't matter, right? So, I mean, this Brewers team is ready to compete, and I think they play a brand of baseball that they're aggressive. They're getting out. They're ready to get out there. They swing early. They don't work a lot of walks, but there's not a lot of power. But they somehow find a way to get the double and everything that they sort of need. They find a way to get it done, I guess is the best way to put it.
With the Brewers set up to go Peralta, Quintana, and Priester this postseason, do you look at Peralta as a guy who might try and make the short start in game 4, or do you think a Jacob Mizorowski or Chad Patrick opener situation with a Freddie Peralta game 5 start would be more likely?
I think that you would want to keep Freddie Peralta for game 5, because then at that point, what you've used, and you can go in with Freddie Peralta if he gives us 5 2/3 innings, and then it's all hands on deck at that point. If it gets to that point, I don't think it is. This Cubs offense is not showing much life.
I would agree with that. And I mean, you should win the games that Freddie Peralta and Quinn Priester start as the 2 best starters in this series, right? The Jose Quintana game could go either way, but we're talking about the Cubs, who do not really have a number 3 pitcher either right now.
Jose Quintana might be the second best pitcher for the Cubs. So,
they love their lefties, man. Moving right along to the Yankees and Blue Jays yesterday. We'll talk about the Blue Jays today in a little bit, but the Blue Jays won 10-1, Rhys. Alejandro Kirk's the best catcher in the league, apparently. What's going on? What's going on, man?
I don't know what these Yankees pitchers are doing, especially the starters, but they're just leaving too much over the heart of the plate. I can't wait to talk about today's game because, oh my goodness, 21 Savage was masterful. But it's, Vlad Guerrero Jr. is hitting for some power. I mean, he's had home runs in back-to-back games now. Everything's sort of going right for them. Springer's been on base when you need him to be. He's a playoff veteran at this point. I believe he also is like very high up there for career playoff home runs too. So Springer knows what it takes to get it done. He even knows how to do it when he doesn't know what's coming towards him. So there's that going for him. And Kirk is your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hitter, is absolutely pretty bonkers. Dalton Varsho today, by the way, I think it was 2 home runs. This lineup is just an absolute buzzsaw. And I know we were talking about it, and I don't really want to pat myself on the back, but I thought that the Blue Jays were the team to beat in the American League, and they're showing why they are.
Absolutely. You were 100% right. Well, I hung on for my dear Mariners life, and we'll see. We'll talk about that one next. But I mean, guys like Alejandro and Kirk and Dalton Varsho, and even Anthony Santander coming around a little bit, being a meaningful 7 hole for the Blue Jays just lengthens that lineup so much. And that's what we were concerned about, right? Andres Jimenez yesterday went 2 for 4. Like, this lineup is longer than even we gave it credit for, just because, some of these smaller names at the back end. But guys like Alejandro Kirk, he hit 15 home runs in the regular season, and now, he's hitting double dongs and in multiple high leverage games. It's surprising to me as also the best defensive catcher in the league. It's pretty cool to see.
Yeah. And known Dominican Ernie Clement is doing fantastic. He hit really well today in today's game. But I don't want to keep talking about today's game. Does Aaron Judge have a what do you call it? A clutch bone in his body is a question that I'm asking myself. He's also looked really, really shaky in the outfield. I don't think that's helping. If we want to talk about the Yankees' problems, it's just been a weird series for the Yankees. I mean, Luis Hill did not pitch very well, but he went against Kevin Gausman, who kind of gutted it out. Gausman didn't have his quote best stuff by any means, but 5 2/3 strong innings with 3 strikeouts, 1 earned run. I don't think you can complain too much on that if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, and obviously the bullpen was able to lock it down from that point. So this Yankees team just doesn't look like they're in the same class as the Blue Jays.
I mean, Luke Weaver was the playoff hero last year for the most, by all accounts. Him and Giancarlo Stanton carried the Yankees last year. Luke Weaver couldn't record an out yesterday, Rhys. And Fernando Cruz is supposed to be, one of their lockdown guys, able to face righties and lefties with that splitter. Gave up a run, only recorded 2 outs. Like this Yankees bullpen is so much shakier than we're giving it credit for, because they did acquire these big names at the deadline. But I don't know. Like Luke Weaver is my favorite out of all of them, and he's looked the worst so far.
He has looked the worst. I don't know what they have to do to get this back on track, because they're down 0-2, and Duvall might have to be their closer at this point, because he's the only one that's looked good this postseason for them. So I don't know. It's been a very fascinating thing, because like you said, and they have the weapons in the bullpen. It's just they're not performing right now, and this is letting the team down. Plus Stanton's not exactly like on fire right now. Playoff Stanton's nothing to be messed with. And then Aaron Judge hasn't been performing very well. And then you're relying on your ancillary pieces. Ben Rice cannot carry an offense. Jazz Chisholm cannot carry an offense. McMahon can't be asked to. And Volpe and Wells are kind of there for defensive depth. Volpe has been honestly probably one of their bright spots on offense. It seems like he's the only one that's able to consistently do anything at this point. So it's going to be very fascinating to see what Aaron Boone does. I noticed that they were bunting down today. We'll talk about today's game. I promise we will. But it's been a very weird un-Yankees like start to the series.
Yeah, and I mean, shout out to that Blue Jays bullpen in game 1 of the series yesterday, only giving up 2 hits in 3 1/3 inning, no walks. I mean, that's what we're talking about. Those are all leverage guys who are pitching for the most part. This Blue Jays bullpen that we saw is maybe a little bit shaky. You and me talked about the righties in the Blue Jays bullpen maybe being below the standard of what a playoff team, what we'd hope to see. Have been just great so far through 2 games. Moving on to maybe the most exciting, Tigers and Mariners are pretty exciting, but the Dodgers and Phillies game yesterday, Rhys, with Los Angeles winning 5-3 and taking a 1-0 series lead. What were your thoughts on that game?
The fact that the Dodgers can go out there with Ohtani starting the game, Glasnow in relief, and Sasaki closing games out is kind of unfair, but that's what happens when you play in a sport where there's no salary cap and you can kind of just amass all these quality arms. Glasnow was fantastic out of relief. Who would have guessed? 1 2/3 innings, 1 hit, 2 walks, but that's fine. He's not exactly known for being pinpoint with a command, but 2 strikeouts. Do you think Ohtani would have struck himself out? Because that was the one thing. Ohtani had 4 strikeouts. It was a very bizarre thing. You had people going on there. Shout out to Brandon Tew of our website. Prospect Live. He was talking about how Matt Strom was maybe tipping some pitches, and Matt Strom didn't have the greatest outing. And ultimately, I think that's kind of what led to the Phillies losing this game. But this series is going to be absolutely electric. I hope it goes 5. I thought that the Phillies were going to beat the brakes off of the Dodgers. I don't think that's going to happen at this point, especially if Roki Sasaki is the greatest closer in baseball.
Rhys, remind me who our Dodgers X factor for the playoffs was?
Roki Sasaki being the closer.
And has him not being one of the most dominant closers. Maybe he's the most dominant closer right now in the playoffs in a small sample size. Granted, he's been unbelievable, and the Dodgers are winning because of that.
Yeah, he has been so good. I can't believe they're still rolling out Vessier, by the way. Maybe this was the get right spot. He only had to face 1 batter, so thank goodness. But the way he's been pitching, 1 batter could have turned into a grand slam at any given moment. So yeah, this Dodgers bullpen, this Dodgers rotation has been fantastic, and then the guys that they bumped from the rotation to play in the bullpen have really, really helped them. Ohtani again didn't really do. He did a lot on the pitching side. Maybe he was tired from pitching and hitting in the same game. I wouldn't blame him. Did you know that Trey Turner won the National League batting title? I know batting average isn't talked about as much. It kind of shocked me how that it was like the least discussed batting title maybe ever. I know we're as a baseball group, we're moving away from relying on just pure batting average, but it kind of shocked me when they said that on the broadcast.
I heard it was the lowest league leader in batting average in 10, 20 years or something like that. Maybe longer, knowing how batting averages has been around, but it was only something like 311, was it not?
It was like 304. It was shockingly low for a batting title. But then when Luis Arias stops, doing his Luis Arias nonsense, that's what can happen.
Yeah. Shohei Ohtani throwing 89 pitches is not something I had on my bingo card in 2025. So shout out to him for, I mean, obviously having access to the best doctors in the world, being able to come back from Tommy John just that fast, but that's pretty incredible in my opinion. And then where I'm at right now, I think Christopher Sanchez is the second best remaining pitcher in the playoffs, Reese, right behind Tarek Skubal. Is that right or wrong?
I think you are right. I just, it sucks that they lost this game because he pitched well. Like he did everything that you can ask for someone going against this vaunted lineup. This sucks for the Phillies. If I was a Phillies fan, I'd be kind of disappointed. But you get a break in between. You get a chance to look and see maybe there's some tendencies. And the Dodgers were pulling people. They were on their Dodgers. We've amassed all this talent and we're going to use it. Like no other team in the postseason.
Bench.
They emptied the bench. The bench went crazy. Not offensively, but like everybody on the bench played. So good for them, I guess.
I love that we have guys like Alex Call starting playoff games, just playing that platoon game. With Max Muncy coming off the bench to relieve him once we got to right-handed relievers like down the board for the Phillies. I just love that kind of postseason game. It's something that your Tigers do. And even the Phillies attempted to do it as well. I mean, I just love postseason baseball because you're relying on, the Jahmai Jones of the world or whatnot to come up big in huge situations, taking out stars.
Yeah, I mean, the Phillies are definitely not built that way, right? They're like, if our top five isn't doing anything, then we kind of have no chance, right? So I think it's a very interesting styles make fights, right? And this is a very interesting stylistic matchup because the Phillies just like, hey, this is our lineup. If we hit a couple home runs, then we're going to win this game, and we have the sort of pitchers to kind of lock down a game. Duran, one of the best closers, if not the best closer in baseball outside of Roki Sasaki, apparently. Kerkering is a perfectly fine option. Strom had a random blow-up game. I think he'll be totally fine. So I'm very fascinated to see how this series goes and the chess match that goes between two managers that I don't think are exactly the most tactically astute, but they just have a bunch of, sometimes you don't need the most tactically astute manager when you've got the options and the depth that these two managers have.
And we see, I mean, the key to this game is Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, and Trey Turner going 1 for 11, right? You're just never going to win a baseball game when your three best hitters go 1 for 11 with no extra base hits. I think that's the main sticking point for that loss for the Phillies. But we'll see what happens tomorrow. Moving right along to the Mariners and Tigers, the On Deck podcast playoff matchup, Reese. You and me have been surprisingly amicable throughout this whole process. Very nice to each other, despite our two rooting interests going against each other. And your Detroit Tigers won it in extra innings last night. That was a thrilling game. I hung on to every single pitch. What were your thoughts on the Tigers win last night?
I was sitting on my Airbnb couch with Danielle, and we were just watching the game. I was stressing. My Apple Watch told me my heart rate was at 120 beats per minute, so it felt like per second. Because I mean, Cal Raleigh and Julio Rodriguez were the only two batters that really did anything that entire game. And I was convinced that Polanco was going to do something. I've watched Polanco absolutely torture the Tigers for his entire career when he was a Minnesota Twin. But I mean, that was a really, really good game for the Tigers. Herter pitched well. Rafael Montero was perfectly fine. Gave up the one run, but you can't really fault him for that. Finnegan and Vest locked it down, and Kiter Montero, playoff hero. Who would have thunk? And Troy Melton pitched perfectly fine, 4 innings, 4 strikeouts we keep talking about all these rookie pitchers. He kind of goes under the radar because he doesn't have the flashiest starts. And he did have a really bad playoff relief appearance in the against the Guardians, but perfectly fine, held it down and turned it over to this really, really good bullpen that AJ Hinch is absolutely he's like a mad scientist in the dugout. Like I just can't wait to see what he does next.
Yeah, Melton versus Kirby was like ethical starting pitching matchup 101. That was a fun watch.
Can we talk about? I know I'm going to keep. I'm very amicable with you. I think that I was very terrified of what the Mariners were going to do. The umpiring in this game was absolutely horrific. I have not seen it went both ways, so I guess you can't really complain too much. But I mean, I saw some of the worst calls I've seen in a high leverage spot. Kirby got screwed over multiple times right before that home run for Kerry Carpenter. That at bat should have been over way before it even got to that point. Because Kerry Carpenter, I did not realize he has George Kirby's number. Like all six of his hits are home runs off of this guy. And George Kirby is not the easiest guy to hit. Also, you can tell when these national broadcasts start coming in. I like AJ Pierzynski and I like foul territory, but he kept talking about how his splitter, he needs to throw it down in the zone. That's not what it is. It's a running two-seamer. And then he kept wanting to call it, I believe when the Kerry Carpenter home run happened, I don't know if you had the audio on, he called it a changeup that didn't break. And like the TV broadcast kept saying, a sinker that didn't break. I was like, man, AJ Pierzynski's not having the best day right now. But it's, this is what happens when you have the national media crew come in.
Yeah, I mean, the nerds have refused to call anything a two-seamer anymore, and I'm one of them. Everything's a sinker or four-seam fastball now. There's no such thing as a two-seamer anymore, and Kirby throws, one of the last good just running two-seamers left in the game. Alex Tosi, the home plate umpire, had an 88% accuracy rating last night, which is one of the worst performances of the whole Major League Baseball year, and he was umping a one-run playoff game that went into extra innings. That's unfortunate for both of us. That could have gone either way.
That game really could have gone either way. I will say, what was it? What did me, you, and Will talk? Like one of the underdog guys talked about it. Cal Raleigh and Julio Rodriguez went 6 for 10. And then you had everybody else on the lineup went 0 for. So it was like 0 for 26.
0 for 28,
yeah, 0 for 28. It was not a good day for the rest of that lineup. I think that there maybe needs to be some shaking up going on. I just don't think playing Dominic Canzone is really the smartest decision. I don't know. You're the Mariners fan. You've watched more Dominic. You've been in the Canzone zone more than I have been. So maybe you would know better than I would. But it's just a very interesting just an interesting day that happened. And now we're going to have a good old fashioned Tarik Skubal day. So I'm very fascinated to see how that goes.
Yeah, with both bullpens depleted, it's Luis Castillo versus Tarik Skubal. So, as you would imagine, the odds favor the Tigers in Game 2, which is first pitch in about 30 minutes here, Rhys. So,
the lineups are announced.
Yeah, if Luis Castillo can hang late into the game, I think the Mariners have a chance. But we know Tarik Skubal is good for 6 in the playoffs. Like at this point, like maybe he'll give up 1 or 2, but he's going to go 6 and save this bullpen. So it's really going to come down to whichever starter can go longer, in my opinion. And the odds favor Skubal here, Rhys.
Yeah, Josh Naylor had some pretty loud outs, so I don't imagine that he'll go 0 for much longer. He is a guy who lives for the postseason, so yeah, this game is going to be very stress-inducing. We got two guys who like to can go deep into games, and just I think we're just going to have to see. And also, take a shot every single time that they mention that Tarik Skubal went to Seattle U. I feel like they cannot help themselves today. I'm going to set the over/under at 10.5, and I'm going to bang the over on that one.
Because the Seattle U baseball team is going to be at the game. Skubal bought them all tickets, which is like,
I didn't know that.
The cheapest Mariner ticket right now for the ALDS is like $300 something because we're just not used to this. I have tickets to Game 5, which I'm going to have to sell sadly because of coaching duties. So Tarik Skubal is dropping a pretty penny on a Seattle U baseball team, which I have no further comments on because I am a coach of the Pacific Northwest and shouldn't comment on these things, but that's insane to me.
That's really cool. It's really cool for him to help out his school. I'll coach for you if you want to go up to the game. I'll go up to Oregon.
Rhys White pitching coach.
Rhys White pitching coach, not the youngest pitching coach in the country though.
You can call pitches on our little iPad. We have the watches, so it's like a video game.
Oh heck yeah! I'll just do it remotely. Nothing we love more than a remote pitching analyst, right?
Oh, gosh. All right, moving on from consultants. Yankees and Blue Jays of today, Rhys. Blue Jays took a 2-0 series lead over the Yankees, who look absolutely dead in the water. 13-7 final. Trey Savage, let's just talk about him for the rest of this episode.
Oh my goodness. 21 Savage was absolutely awesome. I'm going to keep trying to make that a thing. It's probably not going to be, but Trey Savage, that splitter was doing things, and these Yankee hitters were not ready for it. They haven't had a lot of chance to see him. He pitched like 11, 12 innings in the regular season. He was masterful. He looks like he might be the ace of that staff. Probably the second best rookie pitching performance outside of Cam Schlittler, because Cam Schlittler, you kind of have to bump up for the, that's a Game 3, that's a do or die game. They're probably hoping to get like 5 innings from him and, hope that the damage wasn't too bad. The rest of that bullpen, though, they tried their darndest to give that game away, but 21 Savage gave them such a good spot in the beginning. And Max Fried, man.
Was not good. Was not good at
No,
all.
no, I should have
7
clarified.
runs
That's bad.
in three in 3 innings, and then Will Warren giving up 6 and kind of the wear it role that we talk about is the most important postseason role for pitchers is who's gonna wear this game. Trey Savage did not wear anything, throwing 5 no innings with 11 Ks and 1 walk. We're talking about the guy who, by all accounts, was one of the best pitchers in the minor leagues this year, maybe the best pitcher in the minor leagues, playing at all 4 levels before debuting at the MLB level in September, Rhys. And the stuff is just so dumbfounding for hitters where he's the prototypical guy who's going to succeed early in his MLB career. It's the total antithesis of a guy like Jonah Tong, who is a fastball changeup, more predictable pitcher than a guy like Trey Savage is. And I'm just going to talk about the arm angle nonstop. Over 70 degrees, so he's releasing from so far up that his pitch movement is so far from expected movement profiles that it makes sense. The Blue Jays analytics have cooked here with letting him start a playoff game, nonetheless, a game 2 playoff game that could swing the series and did, because MLB hitters who haven't seen him before are inherently going to struggle the first couple times they see Trey Savage. I mean, when you look at his pitch movement plot, if you want to go look at TJ Stats or our boy Jackson's movement plots, all 4 of his pitches are pretty much in the top right corner. And I just got big. I got to figure out how to undo that. But the thing that happens with my camera if you're tuning in for the first time. But his movement is so unexpected because it all essentially moves up an arm side that hitters just don't see it. They just don't see it before. And that uniqueness is the future of pitching, in my opinion.
He pitches in such a way that opposing hitters are just not used to it. And obviously, you saw this is a lineup that will whiff pretty often. 18 swings and misses in this game. Who baby? And then we have 9 of them off of the sinker, and that's not even his best pitch by any means. Yeah, man, we're talking about one of the more unique pitchers in all of baseball. And then, oh, sorry, that's Max Fried. I don't even know what I was looking at. Yeah, Max. Don't. You know, this is live, so I can't really go back. But 9 whiffs on the 4-seamer, 16 of swings and 11 whiffs, off the splitter. We're talking about just an absolutely dominant outing. And, you know, he's such a unique pitcher. I don't know if they should really use him again, kind of maybe save him, or what do you think? What do you think that the best use of Trey Savage is? Because, you know, he did throw 78 pitches, 40 of them for strikes. So he didn't really go that far into the game. So maybe there's still some bullets left to use in this series in a relief role.
You would really hope that this series doesn't go to game 5, because I would imagine, of course, the Yankees are going to do better against him the second time, especially when it was so great the first time. If you're the Blue Jays, you're really trying to get this wrapped up in 4, and you're probably trying to save Trey Savage for game 1 of the ALCS, would be my thought.
Yeah, and we're talking about Trey Savage. In hockey, I don't know if you know, there's the 3 stars of the game. Trey Savage would have gotten the first star of the game. Dalton Varsho would have gotten the second star of the game. He was absolutely fantastic. 4 for 5, 2 home runs, 2 doubles. Right? He couldn't hit a single to save his life. That's fine. 4 runs, 4 RBIs. Dalton Varsho has been everything that they need. And known Dominican Ernie Clement, 3 for 4 with a home run in this game. This is a really, really good lineup, and I just think that. I think this game might be over. I mean, this series might be over, man.
I don't think it's a hot take at all. I think it is over. I would declare the Yankees dead right now. I mean, Judge is having the best postseason of his career. Giancarlo Stanton's still doing Giancarlo Stanton things in the postseason, and they just can't buy a win right now. And honestly, like, they matched up pretty well against the Red Sox. But I don't think that they inherently won that series as much as the Red Sox maybe kind of lost it by not having any starting pitchers. Lucas Giolito getting hurt certainly didn't help. I would have preferred him to Connolly early in a playoff start. The Yankees are dead, Rhys. They're dead.
That's what I'm wondering. Carlos Rodon starts the next game. Do you really have a lot of confidence in Carlos Rodon? Like,
I have so much more in Shane Bieber.
Shane Bieber, man, is your SP3 in a playoff rotation. Okay, so I have a question for you. These Blue Jays, they look like they're going to win the American League. Let's say they do win the American League. Do you think that they're really that much different than the Blue Jays, the Dodgers, or the Brewers? I really don't. I think that they're in that same class of the way they've been performing lately. I don't think people. I'm glad that I was like one of the few people that was out there, like, the Blue Jays are the best team in the American League. I feel vindicated for once. I've been getting things constantly wrong for quite a while. The Padres winning the World Series, that was a terrible pick on my part. So I'm just wondering how you think the Blue Jays stack up against the NL NL field.
I mean, Blue Jays Milwaukee would be like the best World Series ever in my mind.
That'd be the most fun to watch.
It's not super ethical, but it's the most ethical. We just keep throwing around that word. I worry about the Blue Jays bullpen still on paper. I do. I just don't know if there's a stopper in there compared to those that you see. I mean, with Roki, they don't have back there, unless you want to throw Trey Sav, but that wouldn't make sense at all, right? They don't have a stopper in the bullpen, which is why I would still give the edge to whoever comes out of the NL over whoever comes out of if Toronto comes out.
Yeah, I would agree. I was just wondering what your thoughts are on them. I think they're clearly the class of the American League, though.
I would agree with that. So let's move on to this Tigers Mariners game. That's first pitch coming up soon here. We got like keys to the game or anything? Like what are we thinking for this game? Obviously, if the Tigers win, this series is almost all but wrapped up.
You think so? I don't know with Flaherty and Mize probably being the next two pitchers. I don't know if they've announced that going further. If the Tigers can manage to keep the ancillary pieces of this offense kind of quiet, if Josh Naylor does nothing, but they still allow Julio Rodriguez and Cal Raleigh to do stuff, I think that's the way that's the way the Tigers are going to win. You just have to hope that Julio Rodriguez and Cal Raleigh don't hit a home run with multiple runners on base, because if the Tigers can avoid that, I think that they're in this, even if they refuse to hit for power outside of Kerry Carpenter. But that's only off of George Kirby.
I need like Eugenio Suarez or Polanco to wake up, one of the two. I know Polanco actually had a near home run yesterday, like a warning track flyout. One of those two needs to wake up because they're batting 4 and 5 today with Naylor down in the 6th hole with the lefty starting. One of Jorge Polanco or Eugenio Suarez has to have like a multi-hit day for the Mariners to win this game, because Raleigh and Rodriguez aren't enough. And Randy Rosarita, frankly, isn't the same postseason hero he was 5 years ago. It's not the same guy. So let's forget about Randy playoff heroics. He's a perfectly average big league hitter at this point. Like, that is what he is. He's a good leadoff hitter.
Yeah, if he can get on base, I think that really opens up a lot of things for Raleigh and Rodriguez and maybe Naylor. But these are two teams. The bullpens are kind of taxed at this point. They had to use a lot of different relievers yesterday. So I'm very fascinated to see. I think whichever one of these starters can go the longest, give their bullpen the most rest, I think that helps them out for game 3 so much, because I believe we get a day off in between and then they go to Detroit. If I remember correctly, it's 2-2-1, right? Is the split?
Correct. Yeah. Okay, so there'll be a day off tomorrow. They're playing the 2 back-to-back, and then they get the day off.
Yes. Okay. So if whichever one of these starters who have shown an ability to go deep into games, it'd be awesome late in games. Whoever can buy their bullpen the most rest just by doing that, I think that sets them up for game 3. If the Tigers win this game because Tarek Skubal pitches 7 or 8 strong innings, I think that gives the Tigers just the ultimate chance at home to win it in front of their crowd. It's a good fan base. Not that the Mariners are a bad fan base. Mariners are really, really good. They were getting on that umpire as the umpire should have been gotten on. It was awesome. I was expecting to pan. I didn't know which game you bought tickets to. I didn't ask you beforehand, so I was expecting them to pan, and it's just Nate Rasmussen just sitting in the stands with a trident and everything. So yeah, I'm very fascinated to see which one of these starters that have shown that they can go deep into games, which one goes the furthest, because I think that buys a lot of rest.
Yeah, and it's a Skubal advantage. I'm starting to look at what these taxed bullpens. The long man out of the pen. The Mariners have 2 of them in Emerson Hancock and Bryce Miller. Bryce Miller is rumored to start game 4. However, I do think in an area of need, you could have George Kirby bounce back on short rest and have Bryce Miller even pitch tonight. I would love to see a guy to the Mariners pen like Hancock or Miller, or even a guy like Bizzardo go like 2, almost 3 innings and buy this bullpen some rest. Who's the Tigers' long man out of their bullpen right now, Rhys?
I would have said it was Melton, but Melton had to start.
You guys don't really have one. It's Tyler Holton.
It's Tyler Holton, and Tyler Holton's a 2-inning guy. Like Tyler Holton can get you like 7 outs. I think if you're asking him more than 7 outs, I think you're putting a lot of pressure on him. But he does such a good job that he might be able to. Vest is also can be a 2-inning guy as well. Not that I want them to use Vest, but those are 2 guys that get a lot of ground balls. So maybe it's quick pitch counts, and then they can go maybe stretch it into a 3rd inning. So those are the 2 guys that I think that can be the length options for them, because I definitely don't want it to be Rafael Montero. I don't want it to be Kyle Finnegan. And I don't know what other starter. I think was Gibson Long added to the roster. I totally forget. I should have the rosters pulled up with me. Maybe he was not.
I wish Chris Paddock was on this roster, if I'm being honest.
I do not. Chris Paddock is not back. We don't need to keep pretending anymore. So yeah, they might need, like I said, they just need a good old fashioned 7-8 innings strong from the greatest pitcher on the face of the planet. And I don't care if the guy on Twitter that I was arguing with tries to tell me it's Paul Skeens. It's Tarek Skubal. It's fine. We can move on.
I would agree with that one. Well, that's all I've got for playoff baseball. I mean, we're starting to look ahead towards Monday's matchups and some pretty must-win games for the Phillies and the Cubs. Shota Imanaga set to pitch for the Chicago Cubs tomorrow with Jesus Luzardo versus Blake Snell in that Dodgers versus Phillies matchup. A couple lefties, Rhys.
A couple southpaws on the mound on TBS. And Does Blake Snell is the command sticking for Blake Snell? Because if it does, this series might be done. Because if Blake Snell can get you 6-7 innings of 9 strikeouts and 1 walk baseball, man, I don't know what to say about this team.
Not thrilled at the idea of Jesus Luzardo playoff starts. That's not something that gets me super excited.
I definitely would agree with you. I think all the Phillies fans are kind of in the same boat because he is, how do you say it, volatile, a man of two extremes. There's no baseline with Jesus Luzardo. It feels like there's no middle ground.
Are we just barreling towards a Dodgers and Blue Jays World Series at this point, Rhys?
Yeah, we're going off against the biggest market in the Americas, in the United States versus the biggest market in Canada. Good old fashioned North American face-off.
And at that point, I'm in a blender because I would want to root for the Blue Jays, but I'm also an American. Like, who do you root for in that case?
Exactly. You don't want to root. It's like I know you're not a hockey guy. I don't ever want to see a Canadian team win a Stanley Cup. I'm actively rooting against them, and they haven't won one since the 1990s. So, it's good to see that. I don't want to see the Toronto win.
It was like in the Ryder Cup last weekend. Like, I like more of the English team's golfers compared to the American team golfers for the most part, but you can't root for them. Like, it's just not.
Yeah, you have to harass them. That's not ethical. That is the what do you call it? That is the basis of this stream, is basically ethical. And I don't want to see a Canadian team win a World Series. That's the last thing I want to see.
I would have to agree with you there. Well, I think that's going to do it for us, Rhys. 40 minutes strong, over 500 viewers. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Do you want to shout out your socials super fast?
Yeah, if you don't already follow me on socials, which if you're on Prospects Eye of YouTube and you don't follow me, that's fine. I don't blame you. You can follow me at Rhys B. White, and sometimes I post on Blue Sky at Rhys, whatever their naming conventions. What about you? Where can they find you on socials?
Yeah, find me on X at Rasmussen Base, and we'll see you guys again on Friday for another episode of On Deck. Thank you so much for tuning in.